Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. It is the 75th anniversary of the NBA. I actually remember the whole 50th anniversary celebration, Sap. I had a poster in my room with all those players. And so the NBA has released their list of their top 75 players of all time. A lot of obvious no-brainers like LeBron James and Michael Jordan, and then some that are going to be debated. And that is exactly what we're going to do right here, right now, Sap. Talk about what we feel about the list, who maybe should have made it, who maybe should have not made it. And then we'll prognosticate into the future later in the podcast and say who we think is going to make the next anniversary team of the top 100 players that will happen in 25 years. Hopefully we're still here doing this show, Sap, in 25 years.
Well, I'll be 83. So that's probably a long shot. I'm not the healthiest guy. I gotta be
Come
better.
on.
I'll still be here. I'll be here at 83. Still doing
I
the
hope
show.
so.
Sure. I let's count on it. All right. Let's plan on it. In 25 years from now, I'll be 83. You won't even be 60. You won't even be 60 yet, will you?
Nope. I will be 25 years. I'll be 57.
Yeah, it'd be about my age. Jesus, how old am I? So yeah, I'll be 83 years old, and we'll continue on and see what the top 100 is at that point. What's interesting is two things.
Well,
First
if
of all,
you're 83, Sap, that would be the average age of a Boston radio host. So that's
that's true too, because no one leaves, right? Yeah,
No.
no one leaves town. Like Felger and Maz will still be on. They'll be in their late 70s. Big Jim will be like in his early 70s, and they'll still be doing a pretty good show. The interesting thing about this is they ended up with 76 players because there was a tie. Yeah. So I think it would have been pretty cool if they let us know who the two players were that tied.
I know. So, why couldn't they just let us know?
Yeah, like Miss America, like the 76th runner-up was
who was the last player on the list? That's what I want to know.
It was a tie. So there's two of them that tied for 75th. So they put both on. Like, who would you guess that those two players are? I'm going to say it's Dame Lillard and either Reggie Miller or Ray Allen. That's my guess, that it's some combination of those three guys. Now, so they did that. And the other thing that, look, I can understand why they did it. I don't support it. The 50 players who were on the 50th anniversary team all made it onto this team. And the only reason I think that happened is if you're a player who's in his 70s and you made it, do you want to hear, you know what, you made the 50th all-time team, but you didn't make the 75th anniversary team. I mean, get some guys on there that are probably in their 70s or older who would feel slighted about that. So you're going to take Dave Bing off the list, or Paul, whoever. Hal Greer's passed on, but I'm just Dave Bing or Dave.
I know they said they started from scratch, but it doesn't seem like they actually did.
No, I think they're all. I think everybody that was on the
that's true. That is true.
Yeah, so
all of them.
Which, look, if you really want to make a list, that makes so. There's only been 26 players worthy over the last 25 years. So when I do this, where we're going to pull out some guys and put some guys in, I didn't just put everybody back on the list. Now, Dominique Wilkins was not on the 50th anniversary team.
Ridiculous.
He made this. He should have been on that. And I'm not a huge Dominique fan, but he was deserving of being on the 50th anniversary team. But he made it, so I was happy for that. So I get to see what that. And there's going to be some players that didn't make it now that are 3/4 of the way through their career that may make it on the 100th anniversary, because the game evolves, right? And then you look back and say, well, Dominique was maybe better than we thought. And you look at what he did, and he was, multiple time first team all NBA or second team all NBA. He was also playing in an era where, Larry Bird and Dr. J were like, they would just suck up first team all NBA. So it was a race for who was going to be on second team all NBA. And he wasn't going to win an MVP because it was Bird, Magic, and then Jordan. Like, good luck trying to win MVPs with those all-time greats. They won 11 MVPs in like a 14 or 15 year period. They sucked up all the oxygen. So that's when you look at it and say, then Dominique belonged on there. So but I'm going to have some guys that were on the 50th anniversary team. I'm going to take them off because, it's our podcast. We can do whatever we want.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I think that, they did seem to put a lot of thought into this with, panel of players, media, coaches. So it seemed like they tapped the right people to make the list. And overall, I don't think I had, a lot of problems with it. I don't think that there were any glaring omissions like what did they just forget this person existed? But certainly ones that are, highly debatable, and I think,
I thought there
rightfully
was one.
so.
I thought there was one player that somehow didn't make it that should have.
I'm assuming Dwight Howard is who you're talking about.
Yeah. I mean, Dwight Howard belonged on this list. I'm sorry. And I think what happened with Dwight Howard is he's perceived as a clown now, and he's played on so many teams that in terms of recency biases, you look at Dwight Howard and go, there's no way he's all-time top 75 player, which I believe he is. I think he's even better than that. Just look at what he accomplished yet. 8 times All-NBA, 5 times first team All-NBA, 3-time defensive player of the year, led the league in rebounding 4 times, twice led the league in shot blocks, block shots, 4 or 5 times top 5 in MVP voting, did take a team to the finals, which, somehow got Reggie Miller into this group, which is one player I would have pulled out. But I think Dwight Howard is the biggest player that was overlooked in this list. And again, I think it's part of it is because this list was just conducted now, and you look and say, Dwight Howard's played like 8 teams in the last 9 years or whatever it is. He's back to the Lakers. He's kind of a clown at this point in his career. But, there was a 10-year period where that guy was a stud, right? I mean, he never really developed a great offensive game, but man, defensively, rebounding, energy, and I think he impacted winning. So I think he was the biggest omission.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree with you, but just to play, devil's advocate, Sap, I think that you could look at it, and this isn't really, I guess, devil's advocate, but the first point I was going to make is that I don't think he's been very well liked amongst his peers. Exactly. And a lot of those other people who've been voting, not necessarily just a perception that he is a clown, but I just don't think he's a very well-liked person. I think he's been a difficult person to get along with. I don't see that he has had many friends in the league, either with the media, coaches, players. So that's obviously going to impact you. We've seen this in baseball Hall of Fame voting, right? Where the people who vote, if cozy with the media, it took Jim Rice far too long to get into the Hall of Fame in a baseball reference, right? Because he didn't have many friends amongst the players, didn't have any friends amongst the media. It took him too longer than he should. I think a similar thing's probably happening to Dwight Howard. I don't think, again, he's really ever gotten along with coach, player, media member. And so that certainly had a big factor on it. And also, sorry, go ahead, Seth.
That's a great point, Jeff, because look at the player that he played with. He's played with 2 all-time great players. I mean, I'm not going to go through every roster he's been on, but he played with Kobe and he played with LeBron. Now, LeBron at the tail end of his career, he was a role guy, and they won a championship together 2 years ago. He played with Kobe, and that was supposed to be a championship caliber team, and it wasn't. And in the court of public appeal, who do you think players and media are going to side with in that feud? Kobe or Dwight Howard? Not even close, right? Because Kobe's one of the most respected players ever. And I think when Kobe kind of gave him the Heisman and said, this guy's just not serious, he doesn't work hard enough, that just landed with everyone. And that's one of the reasons he's off. Maybe the kiss of death from Kobe affected the voting, and that's why Dwight Howard isn't on that, because his accomplishments deserve to be on here. And like we said before, there's 50 guys that are no-brainers on this list. You just look and go, yep, absolutely.
I mean, you just keep ticking off guys.
There's 50 guys. Sure. LeBron and Michael and Russ. I mean, we know those guys, but there's even other guys, Kevin Garnett, Kevin Durant.
Even now, like Giannis has played himself into a no-brainer.
Absolutely. He belongs on there. Westbrook and Harden. I mean, these guys have won an MVP. They won a scoring title. Assist. No question. Those guys.
No, some are beyond reproach or debate.
Yeah,
right.
And then there's 25 guys. There's probably 50 guys that you could debate could fill the final 25 spots. So that's where the debate is. So like you said, there's no one on this list that you go, how the hell is that guy on the list? Like, he doesn't even belong. They kind of all belong, but there's only 75 of them. So to have some fun, I figure we'll pull guys out. You want me to give you who I would pull out?
Yeah.
Okay. These are the guys that I would pull out. And again, all Hall of Famers, sensational players, whatever the case may be. But I don't think deserving this. Reggie Miller, who I've always had this pushback against, because Reggie Miller.
You hate him.
Not that I hate him. I just think that he's slightly overrated. He's not even the best player in his own family. His sister Cheryl was better.
That's unfair. She's probably the greatest female basketball player.
That's true too. That's true too. It's like if Michael Jordan had a sister that was really good, she was never going to measure up to him. But he was a scorer who averaged 18 a game. Now, he played a little too long, so the numbers went down a little bit. I think he makes this list because what he did at Madison Square Garden when he scored
Yep.
9 points and I can't remember what it was. I think it was 7 points in 6 seconds, and they won that game. And he had it was kind of a fun feud with Spike Lee, and a lot of great rivalry games with the Knicks, although some of those games were just dreadful to watch. You probably liked them because it was defense and sluggishness and thuggishness.
Oh,
and
you
it
know how
was
much,
not
you know how I feel
oh
about
yeah, it
90s
was, oh my God, you
basketball.
must have loved Anthony Mason and all those guys tackling each other. But he made it. I wouldn't have had him on there. A current player, Damian Lillard, love Dame Lillard. I don't think he belongs on this list. And look, he's sensational, but has he really had much of a better career than Kyrie Irving? I mean, and I don't think Kyrie belongs on this list either. Dame's been more reliable, right? He's at least taken his team as the number one guy at one time to the Western Conference Finals, but I don't think he belongs on here. Anthony Davis, I don't know if he's done enough yet to be on this list. And case in point, who's had a better career, standalone career, Anthony Davis or Dwight Howard? I think it's Dwight Howard. Yeah,
because the championship. Listen, I know that sticks out, but I mean, Anthony Davis was nowhere close to the best player on that team.
No.
So that
Dwight
that
Howard
makes it,
took
playing with
Orlando,
LeBron makes a difference.
right? And in 2009, Dwight Howard beat LeBron. Now, LeBron had a phenomenal series in the Eastern Conference Finals, but somehow, Orlando won that and then lost to the Lakers in the finals. So at least he got there. So I think Dwight Howard's, so far, if both ended their careers right now, accomplished more than Anthony Davis. I also have Earl Monroe. I would pull him out. Like, he's legendary. I get that. But kind of like Reggie Miller, he was a scorer who averaged 17 a game. And when he was on Washington, he was playing with Elvin Hayes and Wes Unseld, so he was more of a scorer than he was with the Knicks, because the Knicks had actually a better team and a deeper team than Washington. I'd pull him off. Dennis Rodman. Dennis Rodman, the thing is, he won 5 titles. I guess you got to have someone from those Bulls teams on there, because you obviously have Jordan and Pippen. Like, who else? So you throw Rodman on there as the third wheel. But who's had a better career, Dennis Rodman or Dwight Howard? I mean, they did a lot of the same things, right? Defense and rebounding, but Howard at least scored 16 a game, was constantly in the MVP voting, 5 times first-time All-NBA. I mean, so I think Rodman should be out. And the last one I'm going to pull out, and look, if he had stayed healthy his entire career, he'd be a no-brainer on this.
I know
who you're
talking about, yep.
A top 20 player. And in fact, I think potentially a top 10 player if he had stayed healthy, Bill Walton.
Right.
So now he played 468 games, which is the equivalent of 6 full seasons. His first 4 years, if he had 12 seasons similar to his first 4 years, Jet, the debate would be who's the greatest center of all time. Is it Russell, Chamberlain, Kareem, or Bill Walton? That's how good he was. He was, if healthy, would have had a better career than Shaq, Moses Malone, and Olajuwon. He was better than those guys. He was a freak. 7'1", skills of a guard, intensity, everything. Great hands, great defender. Kareem hated playing against him, but he played 468 games. Like, that is a problem. So I would have pulled him off the list too. Look, as far as him being healthy, it's not even a question, but he only played 468 games. That has to have some impact on this list.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think that's fair, and I think there's good points for all those players. Do you have replacements for every single one of them, Seth? Oh, wow. So you're
better
prepared.
than that, Jet. Oh,
prepared.
God, you know me. I'm surprised I didn't rank the 76 players. That's probably something I
did. I didn't rank mine either. I did 75. I didn't cheat and do 76 like the NBA. I did my 75. And just to give you an example of the players that, and then I want to hear who your replacements are. I don't.
Okay.
I'd have to go through it player for player to see which ones I pulled off, because I don't remember. But the players that I put on my top 75 that didn't make it, and some of these are a little bit of prognosticating into the future, a little bit. But the guys who I had on my 75 that didn't make it were Alex English, Tracy McGrady, Vince Carter, Adrian Dantley, Tony Parker, Bob Lanier, and then 2 more modern guys in Nikola Jokic and Joel Embiid.
Yeah, no, I think, Embiid, I think our next
that's more of a prognostication.
I mean, I think he'll make the 100th anniversary team if he plays even another 5 or 6 years at this level, right? I mean, probably wins an MVP, maybe a title, and becomes one of the 10 greatest centers ever. Like, he'll surpass maybe Patrick Ewing and then the pantheon of great centers. He's more skilled than Patrick Ewing, but Ewing was durable and brought it every night. And B doesn't necessarily do that as well. Yeah, Dwight Howard, my biggest omission. I agree with you on Tony Parker, Alex English, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady. I put Chris Bosh in there. He's an 11-time All-Star. And he did win 2 championships, albeit as third wheel. I know you're not a big Chris Bosh fan. And it kind of surprises me that I am, because when you have a favorite player, you always want to diminish his teammates to make it look like your favorite player carried them. Like, this is a Skip Bayless trick, which is brilliant in my opinion. Like, Skip Bayless loves to trash Bill Belichick and talk about that if he didn't have Bill Belichick, Tom Brady might have 12 Super Bowls, that it was actually Belichick who dragged him down, which is somewhat laughable, but maybe accurate. Also, one other player I have on there, Klay Thompson. And again, Klay is still playing, but Klay Thompson to me is better than Reggie Miller. Case closed. Better player, better defender, better shooter. I don't know, better player. And I think he'll make the 100th anniversary team is kind of like an omission of the 75th
He seems to be the most pissed,
team.
by the way, of all the players that he didn't make, didn't make it.
Maybe he's got something in his contract. Remember when he wasn't third team All NBA, cost him like $36 million? Yeah. Which, you know, again, is that a good thing that's in the CBA, where if you make All NBA, you get more money? Like, I mean, that's great for the players, because I'm all for the players.
Players negotiate it. I don't know.
I know, but you're putting it on, you know, if Chris Broussard,
you're putting on the media,
or, Stephen A. Smith decide to vote for you. I mean, and we've seen, look, the media does a pretty good job with this stuff, and we're part of the media, but there's always about 1/3 of them who don't really appear to be big basketball guys. Like, I see this in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Like, I get the feeling that 25% of the Baseball Hall of Fame voters don't really follow baseball anymore. And then they have a vote, an important vote that can really impact someone's life. And they're voting on something that they really don't care about anymore. Look, I mentioned Chris Broussard and Stephen A. Smith. Those guys love basketball, and they watch it like 8 hours a day. So
Chris Broussard's an idiot, but I respect Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah, but I mean, you get my point, though. At least they're invested in the game. There's other guys that vote in the Baseball Hall of Fame that I swear don't even watch baseball anymore, and or watch some of the guys that are eligible for the Hall of Fame. So Klay Thompson to me belongs on there. Again, 3 championships. Obviously, Curry and Durant are on there, but
that the issue with Klay Thompson that I have, and I know he's one of the very popular choices for the most glaring omission. I have a hard time putting a guy who I think at times was the 4th best player in a championship team in. And I'm more of a Draymond Green guy than a Klay Thompson guy. I know Klay Thompson's way more talented, but I do feel like Draymond Green was more important to those teams. I feel that way. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but
isn't Klay? But Klay's a great defender. Maybe not Draymond Green level.
I would love to see Klay on a separate team to be more definitive about it.
I know. So you can give Reggie Miller credit, because he was the best player on that team, right? He did get to the finals and was always in the mix. It just happened to be playing against Michael Jordan. Good luck with that. So,
well, you've said this, Sap. Who's the easiest player to play with in the NBA? It's probably Steph Curry,
Thompson.
right?
Or Steph Curry or Klay Thompson. Yeah, both of those guys. They're the 2 easiest players to play with. Like Klay Thompson, you could throw him on the Celtics, it would work.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that. They fuck up everything, but it would work. No, really. Like,
come on.
He's my answer to everything. Like, who should the Lakers? If the Lakers could have anybody in the league, who would it be? It'd be Klay Thompson.
He's an easy plug and play person, but I'm saying that I think the fact that
Steph Curry,
who's also very easy to play with, that's why I push back on the Klay
That says
Thompson
a lot
thing.
about them, though. That says a lot about
both
of them, not just one. Because Curry evolved as Thompson evolved, and look, it's the greatest backcourt ever. Not only because of the talent, and I mean, you're talking about the greatest shooter ever, and I think Klay is one of the 5 greatest deep shooters ever. Like, he's every bit as good a shooter as Ray Allen. I think he's a little better because he's a little bigger and stronger. So it worked out. But those are 2 guys that the whole is greater than the sum of their parts, and the sum of their parts is amazing. Anyway.
I guess
so it's just
the question I would ask, Sap, is how many players on this list have never at any point been the best player on their team?
Dennis
Rodman. At any point. Dennis Rodman, I agree.
Dennis Rodman, Robert Parrish, Kevin McHale, because they played with Bird, James Worthy. I mean, there's a lot of those guys that, you look at and say they weren't the best player. I mean, Robert Parrish, you can make a case. I don't know who the 3rd best player in the Celtics was. Was it Parrish or McHale? Like, pick one or the other. So Yeah, I think that there's plenty of those guys. And I think he was clearly, well, in one championship team, I thought he was the second best player. On the other one, he was the third best player. And you can argue about Draymond, and I love Draymond too, but I think Clay gives you closer to Draymond's defense than Draymond gives you Clay's offense in terms of scoring. Draymond's a really good facilitator.
Yeah, that's what the
Yeah,
combination of the defense and the passing is
yeah,
what
he's.
I just think he was so
Oh
the
God,
attitude he brought. Again, it's sort of an intangibles thing, and
sure.
it making it seem like I hate Klay Thompson. I don't hate Klay Thompson. I just think if you're talking about best 75 players of all time,
Well,
it's not really his fault. He hasn't shown he hasn't been given the opportunity to, spread his own wings. Really,
the thing about him, and I'll say this: so Steph had an MVP caliber year last year, led the league in scoring.
Yep.
And they didn't make the playoffs. I mean, they lost
Right.
in the play-in. Like, you put Klay Thompson on that team, I think they're a 4 or 5 seed. I also think this year they're the second betting favorite in the West, behind only the Lakers, mostly because people expect Klay Thompson to come back. I'd probably overrate Klay. He's one of my 5 favorite players in the league. And again, he and Steph are the 2 guys that you could just send on any team in the league. Obviously the talent's incredible. Any team would want them, but they would just fit in. Like Russell Westbrook's an all-time talent. He's the complete opposite of Klay Thompson. Like, I don't know where Russell Westbrook fits. Klay Thompson, throw him on the Knicks. He'd be perfect because they need outside. Everyone needs outside shooting and everybody needs perimeter defense.
Sure.
And he gives you that at the highest level.
Well, for an example, Sap, like I know you said Damian Lillard is one of the people you would have omitted. I wouldn't put Klay Thompson over Damian Lillard. I just wouldn't.
Now, see, that's a good argument. I would
swap them on put Dame on Golden State and Klay on Portland. Is Portland nearly as successful with Klay?
Yeah, but what has Portland really ever done other than be generally a 6 seed? They got to the conference finals once.
I don't know that they make the playoffs. If Klay is the absolute best player on his team, undoubtedly, like Lillard has been, I'm not sure that they're a playoff team.
Well, I mean, I'll go back a long time ago, since I'm the old guy on the show, and Robert Parrish never made the playoffs with Golden State. He showed up here and was in the finals, 5 times. I get that. So and I also think that playing within the team structure and playing with other star players is a really good asset to have. And Klay has that. We don't know about Dame yet. I mean, the best player he's played with is CJ McCollum. So, I like the Curry Dame backcourt. Maybe the talent's more, but would it be as good as the Steph Klay backcourt? Because those guys complement each other better. And look, Klay's a better defender than Dame, much better defender. And look, I've seen him have so many huge games in the postseason, and it's just as a LeBron guy, LeBron lost 3 out of 4 finals to the Golden State team. It always seemed to me that Klay was always the guy hitting these huge shots. Obviously Steph was, and Durant. I mean, the talent was ridiculous, but
what if he comes back and stinks, Sap?
Well, that's a problem. I mean, that he's dealing with 2 injuries. Although I think that guy could probably play in a wheelchair because his shot.
I don't think he's going to stink when he comes back.
No,
don't get me wrong. But I'm saying, would that affect your opinion of him in terms of top 75 all time?
No, because I think he belongs on it right now. So
he's done enough.
He's done enough. Yeah, I just think, again, maybe I overrate the guy, but I think he belongs, because I just look at Reggie Miller and say he was better than Reggie Miller. Now, has he played as long as Reggie Miller? No, but he's played long enough. And you have Bill Walton on there with 468 games played. And look, Bill Walton's better than Klay Thompson as a basketball player. I'm not even bringing that up, but Klay belongs on this team because at least he's had, I don't know, 700 career games, maybe more. Right. So that's why I would put him on there. I also think his skill set is so sublime. Like, there's so many things. I think the both of them are so good together. The way they move without the ball, the way they, I don't know. It's just, I enjoy watching those 2 guys play together. I know it became fashionable to hate them once Durant went there, but I mean, in terms of enjoying like pure artistry, I mean, Durant, Steph, and Klay, and then you put Draymond in there as like the offensive lineman, essentially. I mean, man, that was just beautiful basketball to watch, and he was a big part of it.
Yeah. So do you have anybody else that you put in? I've lost track of that.
No, that's pretty much it. So I basically went with, Vince Carter, Tracy McGrady, Alex English, who I saw and was incredible scorer. Alex English to me was similar to Carmelo Anthony. Like Carmelo belongs on this list, but so does
Yep.
Alex English. Tony Parker, I mean, if we're going to count championships, the guy has 4. He was a finals
I
MVP.
love Tony. One of my favorite players of
Yeah.
all time. Love
I mean,
Tony
why would-
Parker. So he was on my list.
Yeah, me too. I had him on there. I put Bosch on there. Again, 11-time All-Star. That's important, although he was only third team All-NBA once. That's it. So he was always one of the top 24 players in the league, but never one of the top 15.
Right.
But, you know, he was that guy for a dozen years. But to me, Dwight Howard's the biggest omission here. And I think a lot of it has to do with not well-liked by the media, not well-liked by fellow players, and the fact that Kobe gave him the Heisman, and that impacts you. Look, if Michael Jordan hated a teammate, that teammate would go down in the pecking order, wouldn't he? If Michael Jordan just looked at a teammate and said, this guy's nothing but a clown, a waste of time, whatever, that guy in the court of public opinion would be looked upon much worse than he is. If Michael embraced Pippen, I mean, now I don't know what their relationship is.
It's not good.
You know, but I think he understood that Pippen was pretty important to that team and kind of mentored him. Kobe Bryant wanted nothing to do with Dwight Howard. They were so different. I mean, one guy was the serious guy we've ever seen on a court, and the other guy was more interested in entertaining at that point in his career.
I think typically with these lists, and we're ranking all-time great players, longevity plays to your advantage. I think, with Vince Carter being on my list, I think that's a big reason he's on there, because he played for so long and was pretty consistently good to great at some points. But with Dwight Howard, I almost feel like it hurts him, because half his career now, he's almost been a journeyman. With since he's left Orlando, I know he was in Houston for a couple of years. He's had a couple trips for the Lakers, but I think people mostly think of him as a journeyman now. So since the first year he's on the Lakers was 2012, 2013. And he started in the NBA in 2004. So essentially half his career, Sap, he's been looked at as more of a journeyman guy.
Or a clown.
I think that perception has hurt him. If he had just stuck in Orlando for his whole career, or even retired after his Orlando, which, I mean, it would have been too soon to retire because he still put up good numbers, I think people would look at him much more favorably than they do now. It seems silly to say, because again, usually we say longevity, that's a huge plus for these sorts of lists. But I do feel like in a way it's hurt him.
Great point. And then, because he went to Houston, the Lakers. He played in Washington, Atlanta, Charlotte, then the Lakers, then Philly
last year. Yeah.
It's like, it almost feels like, Billy Martin getting fired every 3 years from the Yankees, or again, Ricky Henderson, his latter part of his career was kind of like this, but he was Ricky Henderson. We remember how great he was. Dwight Howard is not the baseball equivalent of Ricky Henderson as a player, but I think the Kobe thing really destroyed him in terms of not making this list. Because look, if Kobe doesn't take you seriously, we're not going to take you seriously, especially the reverence that people have for Kobe Bryant.
Yeah, and I think that any perception that you're anything other than a star player and been consistently a star player, I think hurts you. And like I said, the fact that he's been on a lot of teams, you can't. If you look at this list, there's not a ton of guys who've played for everybody's played for multiple teams. There's not a ton of guys who played for. How many did we just count for Dwight Howard? 5.
Oh
6
God,
teams?
I've lost track of how many teams.
That's not common for an all-time great player.
And what's it? Where did he go? Where he didn't even play? Like, didn't he sit out a year? They just basically got his contract.
Washington, he played 9 games for Washington.
Yeah, I just remember, I when I look at it, I go, he played for Washington. It's almost like Ricky Henderson played for the Red Sox. Like, I was
they benched
really?
him.
Like, I forgot it.
You're like, go home.
Right. Yeah, it's like Al Horford with Oklahoma City, and no one's putting Al Horford on any list, but you get my point. But yeah, no, I think that's what it is. I think public opinion of him, or the media's opinion and fellow players' opinion of Dwight Howard hurt him, because the accomplishments are certainly good enough to get on this list. And then I had this back and forth texting with my nephew, who's a huge basketball fan like you, and kind of likes the same players. And he's like, well, a lot of those things are empty calories. Like, you're winning defensive player of the year in an era when there weren't maybe other great defensive players, or your first team all NBA because the league has no centers. Like, we now see.
I think that's a fair point, is that he played probably at the weakest part of NBA centers.
There were no centers. Yeah.
And so he was going to be by default first team all NBA every year.
So, 25 years from now, we're going to have Rudy Gobert on the list because he made third team all NBA 7 times, because there's only 3 centers in the league, right? There's Embiid, Jokic, and Rudy Gobert, unless Karl Anthony Towns is engaged, then he's the other one. And Gobert's won Defensive Player of the Year twice. He's probably going to lead the league in rebounding. So he may end up
actually
having
think 3 times, Sap. I think he's
3
won more than
times.
twice.
So
Yeah.
he could, when he retires, he could have a similar resume as Dwight Howard. But Dwight Howard was a force. I mean, he still
Agreed.
had 5 top 5 MVP
And was
finishes, and
by
got
far
to
the
the
best player in
finals,
his team.
and got
Rudy
to the
Gobert
finals.
has never been the
Yeah.
best player in his team.
Yeah, I mean, he beat the Celtics in 09. I know they didn't have Garnett, but he beat the Celtics after being down 3 games to 2, and then he beat LeBron in the conference finals. That's pretty good. You know, I mean, with Jameer Nelson, Jameer Nelson. Yeah,
Rashard Lewis,
Jameer
Hideo
Nelson. Yeah, they
Turkoglu.
didn't really. Yeah, nothing really great around him. So,
By the way, that 2011 playoffs, that 2009 playoffs, he was excellent. 20 points, 15 rebounds in that playoffs.
No, I mean, so I think he belongs, but you know, and the big man who was great before him, always considered him as a clown, was Shaq.
Yeah.
Right. Like Shaq just
don't get along. Those guys don't get along.
So Shaq and Kobe, the 2 most beloved players of that era, who won 3 titles in a row together, dissed the guy. So everyone else dissed him because you don't want to piss Shaq or Kobe off.
Yeah, and he hasn't helped himself. I mean, on the court, but like, I mean, he's jettisoned himself from virtually every team he's been on.
He's a clown. No, seriously. I mean, that's the thing I think of him now, is like, he's like, now he comes out and he's playing, he's fighting with Anthony Davis. He's like become kind of a dirty, chippy player when you're more talented than that. So he almost has a WWE feel to him, doesn't he? Like, it's like Dwight Howard's out there.
I could see him in the WWE after his career's over, honestly.
Absolutely. I mean, he may have the best body in the history of the NBA, though. I'll say that. I mean, the guy, I was at a Rockets game a few years ago. We got press passes. This was like in 2014, where like you get press passes whenever you wanted to, because no one was watching the Celtics at that point. It was just at the beginning of Brad Stevens, so they were a non-playoff team. And I remember going down near the locker room and Dwight Howard walked by, and I'm like, holy crap. Like, if if I could wake up one day and have a physique of someone, Dwight Howard was essentially like a 7-foot version of Russell Westbrook. Like, in terms
huge
of
physical freak athlete.
Yeah,
freak
his
athlete.
Shoulders. He looked like he was wearing shoulder pads. I mean, it was just like, so. I mean, he had. I'm not going to compare him to Will Chamberlain, but that type of physical presence. And he never made enough of it because he never developed an offensive game. Remember, one off season he was going to spend with Hakeem to learn offense, like, because Hakeem and McHale and those guys just had exquisite low post moves. He never developed that. That's why Joel Embiid's the guy that you have to watch, because he has that. Like, Joel Embiid has all that skill.
Yeah.
He's got the skill set of Olajuwon. He's like a bigger version of Olajuwon, and I just hope
who could shoot threes
from now. Who could shoot 3? Yeah, and lead the break. I'm watching him the other night. He's leading a fast break. He's a freak. I mean, he may be the most skilled guy in the league for all we know. But I hope 25 years from now, we're not looking and saying, geez, why didn't Embiid make the list? Because he was perceived as a clown by the media or fellow teammates. Although he's fortunate that Ben Simmons is his teammate, because he's the guy who really looks like an idiot. You know, like, so all of a sudden Embiid's like the voice of reason, believe it or not, in the Philadelphia organization, if that makes any sense. But we'll see what happens in 25 years when I'm 83 and you're 57 and we're still debating this stuff.
Another guy who's been debated as, we talk about this guy all the freaking time, and Kyrie Irving was one of those guys who people are saying is an omission.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, Sap, when the list came out, I like to, respond on Twitter threads and see what people are saying. That is the most vocal of any player I saw in terms of people on social media being upset that he was left off the list. Some people will be like, he's top 20 of all time. I think it's insane to even consider him as top 75. I forget the top 20. That's, certifiable.
It's not insane to consider than that. The
skill
level is ridiculous.
We're not talking about the most skilled players of all time. We're talking about the best 75.
He has accomplished a lot. I mean, he's still, again, I think he's living
with LeBron.
Off yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But he did hit a big shot. But
what has he done? Has he accomplished anything in his career without LeBron?
No. He's won 1 playoff series or 2.
He's destroyed now.
He's destroyed every team. Yeah. No, I get you. No, I don't think he belongs on there. Anybody who thinks he's top 20 skill set, yes, absolutely. Have that debate every day of the week. I mean, the skill set, if anybody doesn't think the guy is one of the most skilled players that's ever step foot on a basketball court, they're insane. But also to think that he belongs on this list to me is somewhat insane. Because again, I'm taking Bill Walton off, who played 468 games. I don't know if Kyrie's played a hell of a lot more than that. I think Kyrie's probably around 600 games. I mean, he's not exactly been the most durable guy. Yeah, the amazing thing about Kyrie Irving, do you believe this, Jet? Never has received one MVP vote in his entire career. Now, the way the MVP vote is voted in the NBA, it's 1 through 5. So like
582 games, by the way, Sap, for his career.
Okay, so yeah, so essentially about 114 games more than Bill Walton. So if I can't put Walton on there because he hasn't played enough, then I can't put Kyrie on there. And the other thing too is, like I said, never received an MVP vote. Like generally, like even guys that don't even approach All-Star status will get a 5th place MVP vote because like Julius Randle or Isaiah Thomas from the Celtics 5 years ago. I think he finished 5th in MVP voting. Got a lot of votes. Kyrie's never received one MVP vote. So again, I've compared him to Odell Beckham Jr. They're phenomenal to watch. The talent levels off the charts, but I don't know if it really factors into winning. No, he doesn't belong on this list at all. Now, if he puts together 5 or 6 really good years and wins another championship or 2 along the way, then he will make the 100th anniversary all-time list of top 100 players. I can guarantee you that.
It's still a tough pill to swallow for me.
Well, for you.
The last year he was on the Celtics, he was a net negative, in my opinion. This year, he hasn't played a game.
Not the whole year. Not the whole year.
No, I do think he was the whole year, Seth, because the team underperformed than they did the year prior when he wasn't on the roster. I think he was a distraction and a pain in the ass.
Let me ask you this. If Kyrie Irving played out of his mind against Milwaukee, would they beat the Bucks in that series? No. They lost in 5 games. I mean, Milwaukee was better than them. Like, I think the narrative has gotten a little bit too much.
They beat them the year prior, Sap. They did beat them the year prior without Kyrie Irving.
They were the 7th seed the year before, the Bucks. They had an interim coach, didn't they? Who was that guy?
I'm just saying, I think sometimes you say you like to use force multiplier, right? I think sometimes he's the opposite of that.
Oh, yeah, force divider. No, yeah. I'm with you on that. Yeah, it's like it doesn't translate to winning. And I get
so how can you put somebody on the top 75 list who's hurt teams?
We're agreeing on this, but we're still debating it because there's a different look at this. That's why this is such a good podcast, Jet, because we add context to it. But yeah, no, he doesn't.
It was driving me crazy, Sap, seeing people people were like threatening the NBA with legal action over this. Like that Kyrie wasn't on the top 75.
It must have been all the anti-vaxxers, right? They think that this was held against him because he's anti-vax.
By the way, Sap, these are the people who've been supporting Kyrie recently. The people who tried to storm the Barclays Center the other day. Chris Brown, who is a serial woman abuser. Ted Cruz. What's the guy's name? Jim Jordan. I mean, holy crap. At some point, do you look and see at the people who are supporting you and say, I don't want to be associated with these people?
Kyrie can officially speak at the 2024 Republican National Convention. Maybe
he'd be applauded.
Key speaker. Oh, they'll love him. Yeah, they love anybody that's anti-vaxxer. They love, of course, 2 years ago, they probably despised the guy because he's an NBA player. They generally don't like NBA players. But yeah, no, it does not belong on this list. The talent level's there, but he could make the 100th anniversary list if he has 5 years and wins a title and all that. Because, I mean, look, even as much as you hate him, you do agree the talent level is ridiculous.
Yeah. But I mean, I feel like he's like almost like a supervillain. Like, you could have chosen to do good with all this power and stuff like that, but instead you've chosen to be a bad person.
He may have masochistic tendencies. I don't know. But what do you think going forward when I'm 83 and you're 57, pick 5 guys that are playing now that you would put on that list. And you could put Klay Thompson on there if you think if he plays 3 or 4 more years and the voters come to their senses and put him on this list. But who would you have on your list in 25 years, or who you're perceiving to make it that far in 25 years?
Doncic easily. Jokic, I think easily. I honestly would debate Jokic being on it now. I think he's that good.
Really? No way. I mean, okay, won an MVP, right? So the only guys that won it, Derrick Rose didn't make it as an MVP, and Jokic. Those are the only two. The only two. Jokic, his last 2 or 3 years, has played at this ridiculous level. I mean, it took him time to get there. I get that. Shaq made the 50th anniversary team, and he had only played 6 years and hadn't won anything. And that was the surprise in 1998 when Shaq made it. Like, we knew Jokic Shaq was going to be awesome.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years.
6 years, yes. Well, he was drafted in 13, then he started playing, I believe, a year after that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I couldn't put him on there. Not yet. I mean, I think in 25 years, if he continues playing like this, he'll be there, but not quite yet. I couldn't. I mean, he's
Okay, I mean, yeah, I just, again, he's one of my favorite players in the league. I think what
it's fantastic
because of the crazy assist numbers from the position is sort of what stands out to me.
Oh,
but I think obviously that's putting him on now is a little bit of prognosticating and not necessarily fair
right now. But
I
25 years, yeah,
25 years, he'll be a no-brainer in my opinion.
Yep. I'm with you on Doncic. I think that's like the easy one.
That one's really easy. I mean, if you're talking about other guys who play, I already said Embiid.
Embiid without question.
I think that's an easy one as well. I mean, some of the other guys are just so, besides Doncic, are so young, it's hard to prognosticate them, right?
Well, that's why this is the fun exercise. Let me give you 3 players I put on there.
Yeah.
Ja Morant. He's in his third year.
Looking that way.
He looks like Russell Westbrook 2.0, who is more self-aware than Russell Westbrook because he spent the offseason working on free throw shooting and 3-point shooting. If he continues to develop his game, and he looks like a winner, doesn't he? Doesn't he look like a guy who's going to take a team to a conference finals at some point? And look, the deck is stacked against most players to win championships. Like,
yes,
we got to get it out of our head and say,
especially in small markets. Championship
in a small market like Memphis, like they're not going to attract free agents. That kid looks like a guy who may will his team to like the conference finals at some point. He is phenomenal. I think he's a potential guy on there. I'm going to put Jason Tatum on there because the talent level is ridiculous. And again, we spent a prior podcast comparing him to Carmelo Anthony, who made the 75th anniversary all-time team. So why can't
and I think
Jason
without
Tatum
question made it too.
There?
I mean, made it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
100% deserving. No. And I'm not a huge Carmelo guy, but I don't think you could debate him.
I don't think he's a top 75. 50. I don't think he's a top 50 player, but I think he's a top 75 player. Right. Agreed. I mean, I kind of put him in the same vein with Paul Pierce. I would take Pierce over him because he won the championship and was the finals MVP, but they're both similar players. Yeah, they both belong on there without question. But Jason Tatum, look, he's so young. He's 24 years old. If the light bulb goes off one day and he says, you know what, I'm going to be the best player in the league and I'm going to show you that I'm the best player in the league. Look, I don't think he'll ever be the best player in the league because Doncic is the same age and Doncic is just better. He can do more. But Tatum can be a top 5 player, right? He can maybe win an MVP, win a scoring title. He could be, a Carmelo Anthony type scorer with more variety. I think he could be a decent defender. Like Carmelo can't be.
He can be a good defender. He can be a good defender. Tatum for sure.
Because Tatum's a better athlete than Carmelo, right?
Longer too.
Much longer, stronger. 6'10". The kid's 6'10". Like I remember I would compare Tatum to Paul George, and everybody would flip out and say, "Oh, that's not good enough." Well, we saw the playoffs last year. Paul George was damn good. Paul George is an elite defender, excellent passer, scorer. I mean, Paul George does a lot of good things on the basketball court. Let's talk about what he's good at, not necessarily what he's not great at.
Right.
And I think Tatum can be that guy, but maybe even a little bit better. And the next guy I put on there, and I know I'm probably overrating him already, he's in his second year. LaMelo Ball is the real deal. I mean, this kid is going to be a 20-10-10 guy at some point. And I think he's another guy who can get his team to a conference championship. And if you do that in a league which is dominated by just a few teams and a few players, that may be enough to get you on there. So I'd say of the guys that are really young playing now that can be on that list, and I'm eliminating Klay Thompson because I think Klay should be on the list already. And I think if he plays 3 or 4 more years and wins another title and yada, 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 that he'll probably be on the 100th anniversary all-time team. I'm talking about really young guys who weren't even qualified to be on this particular team that was released. Doncic, Embiid, Ja Morant, Jason Tatum, and LaMelo Ball. Those are the 5 guys for me.
What about, I'll just give you a couple other younger guys. Just tell me if you think yes or no. Devin Booker.
Oh boy. I was so high on him through the playoffs last year.
I know, that's why
played so well. And then now I'm boy, that's a tough one. I think, again, we're projecting out. I think Booker right now is equal to Tatum as a player. I don't know how much more Booker can grow, where I think Tatum can grow a little bit more because literally he's 6'10".
Right.
No, he's definitely a candidate. Absolutely. I mean, look, Devin Booker can be Klay Thompson, right? And I'm putting Klay on the team. So yeah, Booker's certainly a guy. Absolutely. Now that
what
I
about
think of it, sure.
Trae Young?
Yes. Similar to John Morant, except Morant's going to be better. I feel very confident sitting here today in October of 2021. That's where we're at. That in 10 years, John Morant will have a better career than Trae Young. Maybe I'm just overrating John Morant because of what he did to the Lakers the other night.
He did torch them.
He went 40-10.
Well,
but
3 games, he's torched every team he's played. I mean, so far through 3 games.
I think he's a better athlete than Trae Young, right? We
can
agree
on
that.
That's almost my concern about it, is that I worry he's such a good athlete, and those small guards who are great athletes tend to just blow out quickly. Yeah. Because he could be, their game's so reliant. And Derrick Rose has done a great job carving a niche out for himself, but he's not going to end up making probably the top 100 list. He may not make the Hall of Fame. He'll be the only MVP to not.
Right.
And I worry with Morant that he's so explosive and so balls to the wall that something could derail him. Because, again, similar to running backs in football, I don't feel like these guys have super longevity. And Morant's spectacular. And I think at his height, certainly could be or will be better than Trae Young. I think that's certainly possible. But being a smooth dribbler, jump shooter, projects to having a longer NBA career.
No, it's a great point. It's a great, because John Morant, let's hope he doesn't go the way of Derrick Rose, blowing out his knees several times. Westbrook is also the uber athletic point guard who still averages triple-double at the age of 32.
But he may built like a brick shithouse. That's the difference between him and Derrick Rose.
Yeah, Derrick Rose is strong, but Westbrook may be the best athlete that's ever played the sport. Well, Will Chamberlain is. I mean, that any guy that's 7'1" who ran track and threw the javelin. I mean, like,
yeah.
really?
But I think in terms Rose is strong, but he didn't have the physique of Westbrook earlier. No,
Westbrook is like a miniature version of like Dwight Howard and like Giannis, Dwight Howard, Russell Westbrook. They have a perfect physique for basketball. Like they're strong, they're lithe. That's a nice word, isn't it? And good. They're perfect at that stuff. So, but Westbrook, but you see Westbrook's play go down as the athleticism goes down a little bit because he's such relying on the athletic ability, but he still can do things because he's a freak. And but I think John Morant's the same way. But I think John Morant's self-aware to realize I'm going to hit my free throws at a higher rate, and I'm going to become a better 3-point shooter.
That's what that's going to help him. He will extend his career 5-6 years if he becomes a better 3-point shooter.
Yep, absolutely.
Because you just again, it's the same thing with running backs. You can't. Yep. It's an attrition thing, and your career won't last that long if you're driving to the basket 100 miles an hour every single play. And he can do it right now because he's 20. You know, so
I mean,
he can dunk over people.
Iverson had. At what point do you think Iverson stopped being an elite player? Probably
right when he got traded to the Nuggets.
Yeah, so we're talking essentially 10 years.
And he was still very good, but
But again, and he was at least John Morant, I believe, is 6'1". Iverson, I don't think was more than 5'11".
6 feet tall. No.
He wasn't. He again another, and I'm assuming that Iverson, who loves Westbrook, also loves John Morant. And
I'm sure he does.
I'm sure Westbrook looks at John Morant and goes, "You go at it. You're my guy." It's almost like the brotherhood they have in the NFL with the wide receivers. Yeah. Like they all look up to like Michael Irvin and Randy Moss and and all the young guys, and like that, now all the old guys are embracing Jamar Chase from the Bengals or Devontae Adams from the Packers. They're like, these are the new dudes that we love. And you kind of get that same thing with those athletic point guards.
I think that's what Derrick Rose was before he went down. I think he was everybody's favorite player.
I loved him. I love Derrick Rose. I just the fact that he was drafted by the Bulls and he seemed to embrace
him and Morant
for his hometown.
Very similar. Very similar players.
Yeah, very similar. I think Morant seems like a smart kid that's going to look and say, Derrick Rose, Westbrook, Iverson, the mistake those guys made is they never became really good outside shooters. I'm going to work on that. Like you're limited. You just don't, you can work on something. He's not going to be Steph Curry or Klay Thompson, but you can become 38% from three. If he becomes a 38% 3-point shooter and connects on 85% from the free throw line, that's not asking much.
Right, because it's not necessarily about basketball, like game plan. It's about longevity. To add the three. Right now, he doesn't have to add it basketball wise because he can get to the rim whenever the hell he wants to. Right. But if he wants to extend his career, he can't be running as fast as he can at the basket and charging and trying to dunk over guys. Yep. He'll break down. So I love him too. I think he's great, but I would be worried about that. So last question is similar to Wilkins and McAdoo, who weren't on the 50 list,
Right.
and who I both think should have gotten in initially, but they got in on this list on the 75. Are there any players who are maybe at the end of their careers who will get in, or the careers are over, who will get in the top 100? Just two names that popped in my mind. I could be completely crazy with these, Sap. They're on the same team right now. Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler. If they win a title, does that vault either one or both of them into the discussion for the top 100 in 25 years?
That's a great question. It really is.
Thank you. That's what I do.
Yeah, that's really a good question, because it's really, there's a lot of nuance there, because again, if they can win a title. Now, Lowry did win a title in Toronto. And
right.
I make a case that he should have been finals MVP, not Kawhi. He was sensational in that series. And I think the media really likes those two guys, right? I mean, because they're characters. They seem to be accommodating to the media.
The Heat do a great job of building
God,
their players into guys that are popular. They do.
That you like. Yeah, that you just look and say that, like, the average fan.
They're a great PR team. They're excellent.
They really are. I mean, you got Pat Riley running things, so he's pretty good at what he does. And you look at those two guys too, and they're the defensive guys. They could be guys that, as we look back in 25 years and go, wow, those guys had really good careers. But I'll also throw one other name in there too, is Paul George, right?
Yeah.
I mean, because again, Reggie Miller's on this team, so I've got a lot of guys that I think are worthy. Then, if Reggie Miller's on this team, then I think that Paul George, if he continues playing at this level and breaks through and wins a championship, was a better basketball player than Reggie Miller. No, he didn't score 9 points in 9 seconds at Madison Square Garden and, give the choke sign to Spike Lee. That's iconic. I get that. But as a pure basketball player, I think these guys are better. But they could have a chance of doing that. It also depends, Jet, is what the talent level is going forward. I think it's going to get more and more difficult to make these lists, because the talent level is incredible at this point.
Sure.
Never
and
better
more
than we are right
players.
now. Yeah, exactly. I mean, the first 50, it was like there were no international players on that list. There weren't.
No, Hakeem.
Hakeem was the only guy, and he did play college ball in the United States.
Right,
exactly. And Ewing was born in Jamaica.
At that point, the second best international player was like Drazen Petrovic or something like that.
Or Detlef Schrempf. Detlef Schrempf.
It was nobody that would
you
would even consider.
No, now it's like the top four of the top 5 MVP finishes last year were who? Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, foreign players.
Right.
Doncic, yeah. I mean, we always want the world to play the United States in the All-Star game. I think that would be fantastic. And, I know they're, public enemy number 1 and public enemy number 2. You could put Simmons and Kyrie in Australia, because that's where they were born.
I don't think Australia wants them.
They don't want either one of them. But that would be a hell of a game. I mean, really, just take all the foreign guys and include Canada. So
they would actually play hard in that. I know we're getting ahead of ourselves, but they would play hard in that game.
Yeah, Andrew Wiggins you could throw on there for Canada. Isn't Jamal Murray from Canada? You could have a really, really good team. I mean, Kyrie could play from another planet if he wanted to, because I don't even know if he's of this planet. But yeah, that would be kind of a fun thing. So the talent pool is greater. That's what we're agreeing on. So now it's tougher to make this list where, in years past, it was an American game. Now it's a world game.
The Butler thing pops into my head because for I'd say about 5 years, he's been on the periphery of that top 10 NBA conversation, right? Some people put him in, some people don't. And his career started out so poor. He sucked his first 2 years in the NBA. He was basically wasn't worthy of playing minutes. And then he's developed himself round too. So he developed himself into an all-star player, really good player. And now he's hunting a championship for, he's averaged
as the best player on the team,
for about 6-7 years now. He's averaged 20 points a game. He plays elite defense. He's an interesting candidate. I don't hear anybody saying he should have been in the top 75 list. And okay, that's fair. I can see that.
Yeah.
I can see that.
In the top 100 if he's not done. So again, 3 or 4 more years, all-star level, win a championship. Now you're like, okay, that guy's pretty good. That guy maybe deserves to be on that.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's interesting with him, because if you look at his career versus Kyrie's career, take out the championship with LeBron. Butler's been a more impactful player, but not nearly as skilled as Kyrie. So it's Butler has virtually no flash to his game, but he's consistent.
Yeah.
And
He's
so
beef
like
stew.
I don't get the charge for Kyrie, and keep in mind I wouldn't put Butler or Kyrie on my top 75
Right.
list, but I'm saying
I know what
why
you're
hasn't
saying.
there
Yeah.
been any call for Butler, who has been just as if not more impactful than Kyrie, but it's just he has an uglier game.
He has right. I mean, it's completely. I mean, it's almost like
And it's, by the way, played 100 more games than Kyrie.
yeah. No, and is obviously an elite defender. I mean, Kyrie's better on the offensive end because he's unstoppable. But it's almost like if you're comparing quarterbacks, like how's this? It's almost like Kyrie's kind of like Jay Cutler. Like Jay Cutler threw such beautiful balls, had the great
Right.
release, the strong arm, and Jimmy Butler's almost like Phillip Rivers. It's like kind of ugly to watch, but he
He's
showed up
always
every
there.
night and played.
Right.
Always played. Like I didn't want to compare Kyrie to Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers is an all-time great. Like I mean, he's won 3 MVPs. Jay Cutler was always the guy that you'd watch him and go, man, this guy should be a much better quarterback than he is. Or maybe, okay, here's a good Matt Stafford. But again, Matt Stafford was the first pick in his draft, but he went to a suck situation.
Yep.
Kyrie's had good situations. He had freaking LeBron James on his team. Like, if they could have worked out.
When he was on the Celtics, they were dripping with talent.
Oh, they were
when
loaded.
He first came to the Celtics.
They were like, it's your team. Like, here, you're the best player. We got all these guys lead us, and he didn't. And then he goes to Brooklyn, and I still maintain if he doesn't get hurt and Harden don't get hurt, they're probably the defending champs. But it didn't happen. So, but yeah, no, I think that's a really good one. Like, imagine if Kyrie had Butler's work ethic and drive, or if Butler had Kyrie's skill set. Now you'd have yourself, a top 20 player of all time. You put the two together. No, that's a good one because I think Paul George. I mean, I think Paul George has had a better career than Jimmy Butler. Slightly.
I think Paul George is a good choice too. He's not as well liked as Jimmy Butler.
Oh no, Jimmy Butler. I
think it's because Jimmy Butler has worked so hard. Like Paul George, he wasn't a high draft pick, but he has so much natural talent.
Oh, he's 6'10", and he's got I mean, Butler,
but people gravitate to those guys who are just like awesome stories, like Jimmy Butler.
Oh, Butler was homeless, right? I mean, he was his whatever the situation was. He was essentially homeless. He went to junior college, ended up going to Marquette. He was the last pick in the first round. I mean, he like you said, he has probably the game in the NBA that among the best players, no frills. Like there's nothing he does that like he's not a highlight guy. Like you're not going to watch.
Doesn't shoot threes well. Doesn't really dunk over people.
No,
but he scores 20 every night.
Yeah, he's just out there. He's playing he's an excellent passer. No, he's like, here's your basketball player. This guy's really good at it. And again, Kyle Lowry. Again, these guys show up in a lot of All-Star games, and that counts for something. I mean, I think they look at that. Although Chris Bosh, I would assume they win. I would assume Chris Bosh probably has the most All-Star game appearances of the players that were omitted from this. He's gone to 11 All-Star games. Now,
how many has Dwight Howard made?
I believe it was 9.
Okay, see, I would say 11 is awfully high to not make the list. I agree with you there.
But only one time All-NBA,
8
and that
for
was
Dwight
a third
Howard.
team. Yeah, 8 for Dwight Howard. But Howard in those 8 years was also first, second, and third team All-NBA. 5 times he was first team All-NBA. Once he was second team, and 2 times he was third team. Bosh was third team once, and that's it. So Bosh was considered one of the top 15 players in the world once, but he was considered one of the 24 best players in the world 11 times. That's odd. Like he was always the guy that if you put out the top 20 players, he was like number 19. Like
I'm looking at the list, Sap. It's by far the most All-Star appearances of somebody who didn't make the top 20.
Yeah.
It's not. Vince Carter has 8. That's the next closest.
Right. I mean, so Chris Bosh was always there. Now, again, was the Eastern Conference weak at that point? They didn't have a lot of forwards. He was on Miami. Miami was the best team in the conference. So I was like, okay, we got to put Chris Bosh on the All-Star team because you want to have 3 guys from I don't know. But it's all part of the equation, right? And I don't hear any clamoring for Chris Bosh. Chris Bosh is a guy who's very unassuming, right? I mean, I love watching him when he does some hits on TV. What a smart, thoughtful guy he is, and like got pipes to kill for. Great voice, like he's a likable guy, but it's just
definitely likable.
Jimmy Butler's got like an edge to him, and I think the average fan likes that. They like Jimmy Butler's like a guy that would be playing at the playground, like taking the game uber seriously. And
Oh,
you
when he
kinda like that.
retires, he'll still be playing. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
he'll join the big three. He'll do whatever. He'll
he'll be
still
doing,
play
yeah, he's a
until he's
basketball
dead.
player. Yeah. Like Paul Pierce. I'm waiting for Paul Pierce to join something. Um, maybe the circus. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where we're at. Well, I hope I'm alive in 25 years. That's the goal.
I'm rooting for you. Oh, by the way,
Thank
Seth,
you.
you're Reggie Miller, 5 All-Star appearances, just for what
Yeah,
it's worth.
I'm sorry. I just don't, and I like him personally. I do. I love Reggie. I mean, like, I think he's a great personality. I think he's good on TV. It's just that, like, I push back against him. I always push back against Karl Malone. Now, Karl Malone obviously belongs on this list. Karl Malone, to me, is one of the 25 greatest players ever. It's just that I never embraced him personally. I think with Karl Malone's more personal than like Reggie Miller.
Yeah, he's an
But
asshole.
He's an asshole. Reggie Miller seems like a cool guy. I mean, I like Reggie Miller a lot. I just don't think. Let me put it this way: he was a scorer who averaged 18 points per game. Like, that was his.
Fair.
He averaged like 3 assists and 3 rebounds. I think Ray Allen was a better version of Reggie Miller, slightly better version.
Maybe this is a podcast for another day, Seth, but I do think it is fascinating going through what I've been looking at right now is the total number of All-Star appearances compared to the people who made this list.
Yeah.
And some people you're like, that's awfully low for All-Star appearances. And then some people who didn't make the list, you're like, wow, he made that many All-Star games.
Yeah. And again,
that's why this is great. I mean, we could do 100 podcasts on this.
And not every era is the same.
No.
I mean, it's almost like, let me put it this way. If you were a shortstop in the American League in the late 90s, early 2000s, you weren't making the All-Star team because there was Jeter, A-Rod, and Nomar.
Right.
Like, if you happen to be the 4th best All-Star in the American League, you weren't making the All-Star team.
Yep.
You weren't. Same thing in football. Now, football, the Pro Bowls, they get selected and then no one goes to the games.
So other people you end up by like the 15th best quarterback makes the thing.
Yeah. You get Jared Goff ends up going to the Pro Bowl all the time, and because no one else, like Brady, I don't think has played in a Pro Bowl probably since 2005 or whatever. I mean, he's busy going to the Super Bowl every year.
Yeah.
But so not everything is the same. So like I said, if you're a great shortstop, but you happen to be playing in the same league at the same time with A-Rod, Nomar, and Jeter, you're not making the All-Star team.
Yeah. But I mean, this is a blast, Sap. We could do this all the time. We'll probably revisit it at some point in the season again, just to, see if anybody has piqued our interest in terms of making it. And certainly always really fun to debate the greatest players in NBA history. It's just a blast. I could do this all day, but we don't have all day. So everybody will have to be content with that. And we will be back with another podcast soon, talking about what's going on. We talked about the Celtics and the Lakers in the previous podcast, just giving you an update every week and multiple times a week about what is going on in the NBA, news, results, all that great stuff. Sap, always a pleasure debating the NBA with you. Make sure you check out our show, the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, wherever podcasts are found. We're presented by Full Press Coverage. Check out our socials too. John Sap 25 at Jet Stryer on Twitter and youtube.com/Jet Stryer for the video version of this show. Thanks for listening, everybody. See ya.